He had his gun, so he just swung it open.
I start to notice that, the atmosphere feels a little bit weird.
First thing he seen was this 6.5 foot tall, broad shoulder, dark hair. That freaked him out.
We hadn't talked to her about like life and death and what any of that means. She's 3 years old,
So we turned around. Suddenly there's a whole tree falling across the road.
And she was describing to us that, there was a deceased person that she could see visually.
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, where we tackle the ever-expanding history and mystery of monsters and supernatural madness every Monday. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca for more information, or even check out exclusive content and support us at patreon.com/CryptidClues. Welcome to a reality where dreams come true. Where our host Taylor can dream of a hot dog, then wake up and choose to eat a hot dog for breakfast. Where prophetic visions like these are possible, conspiracies lie in wait. Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode where Taylor and myself, Reuben, discuss the wacky world of dream psychology. Taylor, how are you feeling today as we record bright and early, first thing in the morning for a change?
I'm feeling pretty good, and I love that intro. That was fantastic. I might go for a hot dog for lunch today.
Ooh, I influenced you. My brain powers are increasing, as
Yes.
we'll discuss in this episode.
That's exactly right. But I'm doing good. It is an early morning, change up from when we usually record in the wee hours of the day. So I'm excited to see what you have to present this morning, because you sent me a video and you're like, hey, we should do this as a topic, and I checked out the video and it was quite something. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this, and I mean, relay to our listeners in detail what we're going to be breaking down.
And this is where our battle begins, as I'm excited to hear Taylor's thoughts on everything with my morning brain suffering under the lack of caffeine. Now, Taylor, recently we did an episode where we discussed briefly within it the topic of energy experiments affecting water molecules and the life of rice, which, by the way, that sounds like a wacky AI-generated Pixar film, Life of Rice. Now, Gateway Project was something that the CIA talked about in 1983, and it's just one tiny little sliver of this overarching topic of dreams and astral projection, rabbit hole, conspiracy nonsense. However, they talked about experiments in syncing the frequencies of the left and right hemispheres of the human brain to be in sync with the vibration of our planet. Now, as wacky as that sounds, when humans, or anything with a brain really, reaches a relaxed state, the micro movement of the human brain can temporarily output a vibration that's enough energy to be able to be recorded by instruments, leave the human body, and merge into the same pulsating resonance produced by Earth. That is a wavelength that travels 40,000 kilometers, which is basically the circumference of the planet. So if your brain energy in some teeny tiny way, no matter how minuscule, can travel the entire planet within about a second when synced up just right, what happens if you could control it? Now, obviously, we talked about water molecules, rice, little studies that may or may not have truly had some kind of beyond placebo effect, especially on water, because that's observable and repeatable. Many experiments have been conducted not only by the CIA and publicly published from the 60s to as late as 2016, where some countries, such as China, decided to put a block on these studies. You're no longer allowed to research them in China, for example. Now, the government, of course, is, but regular institutions cannot. These experiments range from lucid dreaming, which I have some experience with, out-of-body experiences, telepathy, remote viewing, and even remote hypnosis, which is super wacky, and I'm sure that's something that you would love to explore as well as a topic. While many reputable studies come from major institutions like the the National Institution of Mental Health, NIM, the CIA, from Russia, from China. One thing each topic has in common: for the majority of these studies, the reports and experiments continued for so long because the outcomes were higher than chance, to be disregarded as impossible. Cases were repeatable, with a successful outcome in some of them as high as 60%, like for remote viewing. Warnings were also given out on some of these studies, prepping test subjects for encounters with other intelligent, spiritual, or unknown entities. Now, I want to back that up for just a moment here. We're going to go back to where I brought up the Gateway Project, energy and vibration and stuff leaving the body. Taylor, what are your thoughts on being able to get a human being in sync in some form for a brief amount of time with an output of energy that is physically outside the body?
There is probably a lot of different controversial perspectives that would tackle this. And I think that there is probably, and I don't speak from a position of experience or proper knowledge, but there is probably this type of similarity or this type of concept that is represented in different types of religion, maybe to a degree, and written in some certain type of way. And I would default to you to maybe highlight if there's anything like this that's ever talked about in like Christianity or anything like that that you might be aware of. But
Prophecies would be one, like the different prophets and stuff in the Bible. That would be something where a lot of them had dreams or visions while they were asleep given to them by God.
Right.
And of course, the prophecies in the Bible are those ones that later came to fruition or truth because they were given to God's chosen people by God himself.
Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at people being able to in sync with the planet, I think that there is two scenarios here. And I say two loosely because we just don't know. You have a possibility where, hey, wherever we came from, who knows? Space, whatever you want to believe. That's one thing. But the other route that I'm going to run with is like, okay, let's say that, we were made for this planet. We were here, we evolved on this planet. God made us, whatever you believe in. But we are just, this planet is our home and we have a very powerful connection to this planet. And I think that for me, at least the way I see it, to be able to actually connect into this planet, I know when I'm walking on the grass and I'm not wearing shoes, it's just my bare feet. It feels so good just to have that level of connection. Very different, of course, because that's more like a nerve ending or a sense satisfaction than really.
They call that grounding, right?
Yes, that's right. You can do different types of grounding.
That's observable as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's maybe a step, pun intended, in the right direction towards getting to that sense of relaxation where your body and your energy just starts to kind of relax more and kind of get into that zone with the planet. But
if I may interrupt, as wacky as it is, going to the topic of grounding real quick, that was something I had first heard about and looked into, and I was like, I kind of dismissed it. I was like, what is this? But then looking at the experiments and stuff, because like so much of this is thrown into consumerism, where people are looking at it as a fashion trend, or you look at someone talking about grounding and you go, whoa, what do they believe in? Like, is this like its own little rabbit hole? But grounding is scientific in the sense that you can measure the output of electricity from the human body to the earth, to grounded things. So you go out and you touch a tree with your bare skin, electricity does leave your body, and people can measure this. If you have shoes on, you're walking around on the dirt, you're cut off from that energy output. But if you walk around barefoot, and I don't like walking around barefoot, so I'm not grounded half the time, it does output electricity back into the earth around you. And studies show that if you consistently ground or you sleep grounded using special tools that you can just buy like a grounding mattress or grounding blanket online, which I always dismissed, and now I'm actually kind of recently thinking, you know what, with my back pain and my headaches and stuff, that'd be kind of nice to have, that it does reduce pain and inflammation and stuff because all that pent up electricity is able to leave your body on a frequent basis, which is healthy for you. And that is how we used to be. It's in our world now where we're constantly wearing certain materials or clothes that were cut off from allowing our bodies to get rid of this excess electricity / energy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's just on a minor level. I mean, there are people who really get into that topic and can explore a whole rabbit hole of conspiracies with that too. That's a whole nother subject, but it kind of does relate to today's topic a lot. It's like you're bringing up. But carrying on, Taylor, I interrupted you. I hope you can remember where you were going with your previous paragraph. Otherwise, I'll carry on with something else.
I think it's just in closing, being able to have energy or electricity, like we already discussed in a previous episode, having those capabilities on a smaller level through physical movement that generates that electricity, but then also being able to tap into that through a relaxed, where you're not moving, but you're still generating that type of power, and not necessarily the same. They're the same, but they're not the same. They're different, but then they're not so different. It's just different ways of achieving maybe a similar end result, depending on how you look at it. If you're looking at it more scientifically, if you're looking at it more spiritualistically, but you're reaching a certain tier with this by relaxing. And I think that you talked about it, and we'll get more into it. I'm excited to talk about the NIM factor, but there are governments that are still allowing themselves to look into it and potentially weaponize it, because that would be an ultimate game changer, right?
Okay, let's come back to that. Because you're saying that, like, grounding, for instance, going outside, connecting to the earth is a way to achieve that kind of energy output. I would say that there's a bit of a difference. One is relaxing the human body and allowing itself to kind of achieve a natural cycle in output, whatever. I don't have the proper terms for that. The other that we're kind of getting into with like the Gateway Project and stuff is syncing up in almost an astral projection type sense, being able to use psychic abilities, being able to tap into something that human beings generally do not or cannot achieve. Now, I want to read to you a paragraph or two from the CIA document that was approved for release in 2003 about the Gateway Project, which was originally from the 1980s there. Before I do, I just want to play devil's advocate with the whole CIA website stuff. I know I bring it up frequently on a regular basis as this crazy, how did the government publish these? Why is it public? Why is there these visible rabbit holes into craziness? The CIA website actually does have a lot of wacky stuff published on it. Some of it is really interesting, some of it not so much. There is quite a few things on there, such as, are you a self-conscious human being or a programmed slave? That they just, interesting 1974 document. Why would they publish that? There is an experimental psychic probe of the planet Jupiter, which was a remote viewing experiment. There is a 1969 testimony from a Russian engineer about a local psychic who could supposedly heal people with his hands. This is coming from a single dude who just kind of walked over, gave him a testimony, walked away. They published that. So that's on the CIA's website. That's not observable, repeatable, or a study. It's just an eyewitness testimony about something that may or may not have happened. Also on the CIA website is an entire issue of a magazine called Flying Saucers UFO Reports from the 1960s that they decided to scan in and archive a copy of, along with a newspaper clipping accusing the CIA of suppressing talk about UFOs. Now, after all that, I want to hit you with an internal CIA memo about a shortage of Coca-Cola bottles. That's also published on their website for some reason. So there's a lot of stuff that's on their website published for viewing, and whether that's there as just their archives that they were forced to release, whether that's there as a way to distract you from what's real or not real, who really knows? I would like to believe that plenty of these CIA documents and studies and experiments are true in the sense that they did perform these experiments and that the evidence that they were able to repeat was possible. So from the Gateway document, Section 5, Gateway and Hemisync, there's a discussion about their training system designed to bring enhanced strength. They would focus on coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemispheres so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape the restrictions of time and space. That sounds like something from a sci-fi novel. But it goes a little bit further into it here when they talk about what they're defining. Now, there's a monograph by the Monroe Institute trainer Melissa Yeager, and she talks about a state of consciousness defined when the EEG patterns of both hemispheres are simultaneously equal in amplitude and frequency. And that's ultimately what they're following for these experiments, using sounds or recordings like binaural beats, which you can actually just find on YouTube. Apparently, you can put 2 earbuds in, listen to some binaural beats, and if you do it frequently enough and practice, you're able to have some kind of experience. The interesting thing about that is right here in section 5, they actually talk about how hard it is to train a subject up to this level. They have test subjects with 20 years of training in Zen meditation just to be able to have a 15-minute experience. However, after that much training, they can throw away all the tools because they can consistently establish hemisync at will. So you go from these test subjects that you're making them listen to sounds, binaural beats, or whatever. You also have test subjects who have been practicing this for so long that whatever tools they're using to measure this output, to make sure that the brain is vibrating at the correct state, people who have achieved this through meditation can just flip it on like a switch, and they have a solid 15-minute timer to basically have whatever experiment they want to do be conducted. The other people that don't have that practice, you need to put them in the right positions, you need to give them the sounds, you need to force them to have that experience for a lesser amount of time. That's very interesting to me.
When you say reach a state of Zen, are you talking about like Qigong?
Well, in a sense, these people are practicing whatever form of meditation to simply calm down the human body, achieve a vibrational state. I don't know if they're going like Om and doing the whole vibration thing there, but that's entirely possible because that's basically what it's all about in some forms.
My brother-in-law, he is a huge practitioner of Qigong. He has gone overseas. He's done these retreats and practicing it. He teaches it here. He lives and breathes that lifestyle. And he's also kind of vague about certain descriptions on things that he's seen, because he says that his master who instructs him, when they go out to overseas, out to Europe, and they go through these retreats, they are completely remote in these isolated scenarios and situations, and says that his instructor is just, they tap in for brief moments at certain parts of a day, and they have surreal connections with something. And again, he's kind of vague about going into the details about it, but he says like it's just concentrated energy, and it's just incredible the things that they're able to kind of tap into through this type of meditation and relaxation.
Well, and I mean, that's a very grounded place to come from, to be vague about it, because you don't want people judging you based on your experiences. You might have had those experiences and know 100% that's the truth. But like you and me talking about Bigfoot or our podcast in general, there's a lot in the general public that's dismissive of it. So we're vague about it sometimes, right? I think that's the same thing. Going back into this end of the paragraph here, they found that using these tools or using these people that have been trained, the focus of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of one-pointedness, which translates into Western terms as single-mindedness. They go on to observe that as these individuals go into tapes with sounds and stuff, there's a gradual increase in brainwave size, which is a measure of brain energy or power, and it's consistent with that meditation. So ultimately, they're achieving the same goal. People from ancient times that have been practicing meditation, yoga masters, stuff like that, they've essentially been able to get to the same end result. And that's what's interesting to me, is as you go back through Eastern European or Asian history and you look at these people that have had these experiences where they talk about traveling the world when they're like meditating, basically lucid dreaming or out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, stuff like that. It's kind of like it's come back today with these CIA experiments and all that kind of stuff. Like we've achieved it in a more technological sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's kind of it for the paragraph that I have about that side of the topic. So when it comes to these experiments, obviously their ultimate goal was to use these for a purpose. And some of these purposes that they have tested were being able to remote view other planets, Jupiter, Mars, the test subjects that they have in various rooms. They'd be like, hey, you know what? We want to give you these coordinates. We want you to focus on these numbers and tell us what you see. And they leave that person very, very vague. They don't tell them anything. They use their trained test subject to remote view into this area. And you and I are both now talking about this beyond this study so far as proof. We're now open-minded enough to accept that maybe, okay, this was possible. Did this really happen? This test subject then gives them a description of almost like kind of a reddish colored desert. There's a monument. There's some structures. There's people around, like weird energy type beings. They've noticed I'm here. And then they get pulled out and they're like, where did you send me? And they go, oh yeah, we sent you to Mars. That's super trippy. What?
Yeah, that really, really is.
That's really wacky. Now, okay, reddish desert, there's monuments, there's other beings, Martians. What are we talking about? I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but there's frequently I've seen that kind of story come up, and I'm tripping out about that. So remote viewing was one purpose they used it for, to explore these places. Also for wars, being able to remote view and spy on enemy territory, figure out secrets, stuff like that. That was obviously one of their bigger purposes, to use these kinds of psychic powers to fight in wars.
Yeah, of course. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes.
I mean,
Going on... Sorry.
I was just going to say the planetary exploration, I feel like that is so much more like... You're worried about what a neighboring country is going to do. I mean, but yet you're going to another planet and can see another civilization, possibly. I mean, that seems a little bit more important.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I kind of thought about too was, is this something that's observable necessarily? If it is true, are these beings observable by cameras and rovers? Are they just well hidden? Or is this something that you would only be able to see in a state of energy consciousness? Are these beings not physical?
Well, that's exactly it. That's a good point. Does it depend on the fact that maybe this isn't another type of dimensional plane of existence instead of like our physical three-dimensional realm? And it's your consciousness that's tapping into this, right? So it's very different from a physical drone rover rolling around on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Now, backing it up a step, because I've jumped us into remote viewing. Remote hypnosis is mentioned briefly here as well. And one of the purposes they used this for was just to put test subjects to sleep from remote locations. So they'd have someone practicing hypnosis on a subject, thinking about that subject, trying to send them into a state of sleep or unconsciousness. Then they observe their test subject and go, oh, yeah, okay, subject's asleep. Huh? So if you practice these things enough and your test subject is not defensive or they're willing to this experiment, you can remote hypnotize someone, potentially?
Is that similar in the sense that you are up on stage, you're a show hypnotic, you're at let's say a fair or a carnival, and I've been I've seen a few of these shows myself. My sister was in one, but the guy's up on stage, he's doing his show, his performance, and he's a hypnotist, and he's like, hey, come on, okay, we want a few people here, brings people on stage, and then he'll just put a few people to sleep in the audience. Now, is that similar, would you say?
Maybe. I would say that on stage like that, a lot of it's placebo.
Right.
You're there for a show. You're looking at something. You truly believe they can do what they can do, or you're very skeptical, whatever. Maybe they have some people in the crowd picked out and a couple others that follow along with it because they're embarrassed to expose the gig, right? If you have 3 people in a crowd that you have paid to fall asleep on command, is to pretend to be asleep when you do a trick, and you pick out 5 people, those other 2 are going to see the other 3, because they're probably in a spot where you can see them, fall asleep, and then go, oh man, no, I better pretend to be asleep too. It could be a thing like that. But also with remote hypnosis, if you have an experiment or test subject in these kind of institutes studying it out in like a park or something, and then you have the so-called psychic hypnoser in a building far, far away, and that test subject falls asleep at the same time the hypnotizer is trying to send them to sleep, that is pretty weird to me. That seems like there could be something if those experiments are true. That brings me now into telepathy for these experiments. If your brain waves, as they sync up with the hemispheres and all that, can travel around the planet, it's a frequency. So if person A is in this state and person B is in this state, it's entirely possible then, we're assuming that this is all possible even to begin with, that energy collides, that you might be able to retrieve it if that energy is surrounding you. Could you transfer thoughts? Could they use this for telepathy? They were certainly looking into it in these experiments.
You'd have to look at it in the sense of, let's do X-Men. Professor Xavier, and he's got Cerebro, right? He puts on his helmet and he can basically tap into everyone's frequency around the entire planet, and he can telepathically communicate. Of course, that's with the help of technology. This is directly tapping into the frequency around the planet, and you are just using your mind to tap into it and talk to someone else, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to this whole gateway experiment and stuff, out-of-body experiences are another sliver of this subject, and we've kind of talked about them in the past, in past episodes, and it kind of leans into the realm of near-death experiences, astral projection, but really it boils into that umbrella topic of energy, vibration, the human consciousness being able to leave its physical form and enter a dimension or a plane of reality that we cannot achieve from our physical bodies and interact with the world around us. That's another thing that is truly fascinating to me. But what are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, astral projection is something that terrifies me because of certain horror movies. But so you're saying more so not necessarily astral projection, but tapping out of your body, and then are you re-tapping into your body elsewhere, kind of like you're phasing in and out, or you just have you have total control of your consciousness and you can just move your consciousness from point A to point B, point C? Is that what you mean?
Basically, you turn into a ghost, and then you can go do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, to me, it just feels dangerous because I feel like you're going to be encountering and seeing things that are trapped in that line of sight in that world, and you just don't know if they're going to latch onto you or they're going to want to come with you when you return.
Or come back to your body when it's empty.
That's right. And that's what the great Insidious movies do at showcasing, and it is absolutely terrifying. Of course, it's a horror movie, and so you're going to have that horror aspect connected to it. But I do think that there is little bits of very interesting merit and revelations in these different movies. Now, you sent me, as I've previously mentioned, that video that was talking about dreams are real, and they're talking about the movie Secret of Nim, which is a great animated film. I love that. I own it on DVD. It's fantastic. And then they had clips of like Men in Black, and so he's using different scenes from movies to basically reinforce his case in point. And I think that when you were talking about taking your consciousness, leaving your body, Insidious is just a movie, of course, but I think there are ideas represented in there that should be taken maybe to heart a little bit. And so if you are able to focus your energy and leave your body and move somewhere else and literally become a ghost and do things, it's interesting because are you now, if I open this door in my office, am I doing that in my like physical conscious plane of existence, or have I elevated into a different realm and I'm opening this door that exists in a different like there's so many rabbit holes that are attached to something
So
like that.
many. Are some ghosts really just people astral projecting and messing with others? But
Yeah.
man, I would totally prank some people. Now, we've kind of gone down many little rabbit holes this episode. I would like to bring it back down to a very grounded one about lucid dreaming. Now, lucid dreaming, I think we've kind of talked about it a bit on the show. I don't know if we talked about it in depth. Do you remember anything, Taylor?
Oh, if we have, it's not been in depth. It's just been.
What are your thoughts on it?
I 100% believe in it. There was a person that I had met. I used to work, I'll be very, very vague on this for not that you'd ever figure out who it is, but I'll be very vague. There's a person I had met a long, long time ago, and I worked with him. And one day we just started talking about different random conspiracies and different ideas. And he starts telling me about how, oh yeah, I know when I go to sleep at night, I can control my dreams. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And maybe this is a little bit different than being able to have dreams that are visions and changing what the outcome is, which we'll get more into. But with this gentleman, he talked about how he could create things in his dreams. He could create certain celebrities that he wanted to talk to and have discussions, and he remembered all of it. Before he would go to bed, he would just set this certain zen tone for himself, and he would lay there, and then he would just tell himself as he's going into his sleep that I'm in control, this is a dream, I can create what I want to create. And so he would drift off, and he would go into this state where he's visually able to remember everything and be conscious in this moment, and he's creating things. Is it all totally fake? It could be. He could have been pulling my leg, but he was a very sincere guy, and I think that there is some very interesting things that he was able to do. And I've tried it, and I've gotten relaxed enough, but I'm such a deep sleeper and a heavy sleeper that I just pass out like I've been drugged. So I need a lot more practice.
Now, we've kind of talked about lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, telepathy, remote viewing, remote hypnosis. This whole episode has been about those subjects and dreaming and all that kind of stuff. I definitely believe in lucid dreaming because I've had experience with it in the past. The other topics I'm a little bit unsure of. I'd like to believe that if the CIA has spent so much time researching remote viewing and energy output and stuff like that from the human consciousness, there's probably some truth to it. It's probably something achievable. People that are meditating, I definitely believe that people have had experiences. But my experience, lucid dreaming is achievable. Anyone can do it. It just takes effort. Sometimes, especially when you're a child, it happens by accident. I had a lot of lucid dreams as a kid. One of my first lucid dreams, I still remember it to this day because lucid dreams are very unique experiences. I was walking to my neighbor's fence gate to go visit my friend in my dream, and I was just a little kid, but I remember stopping and going, "Oh, I'm dreaming. I'm asleep right now." And I just slammed the gate shut. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to go to Zeller's and look at toys. So in my dream, I jumped up, flew like Superman all the way to the mall, went into Zeller's, and went down the toy aisles. And I was looking at toys in my dreams and just having a blast walking around an empty shop. It was great. But then I got too excited and I woke up. And every now and then, as a child, I'd remember in my dream that, oh, I'm dreaming. I want to go to Zeller's because I love going to Zeller's as a kid. And I get too excited and I wasn't able to get to Zeller's again. And I'd always get so angry because I was like, I did it the first time. Why do I get too excited when I realize I'm dreaming? So later on in life, I was like, yeah, no, lucid dreaming, that's a topic. I did that as a kid, I'm pretty sure. So I looked into it, and completely possible. You can practice it. I don't practice it enough. I don't lucid dream very often. Occasionally, I get to that point where I realize I'm dreaming, and it's kind of like, you know how in Assassin's Creed, when you load into the map, everything goes from wireframe and spreads out to the distance and becomes clear? It's kind of like your dream is in a fog. Things are blurry. You can't read words. You have too many fingers, blah, 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 blah. But if you realize you're dreaming, all of a sudden it's like that rollout where everything clears up and it becomes super vivid. That's what lucid dreaming kind of feels like, but you're still in the dream. And whatever you think just kind of immediately can happen. Of course, if you're struggling with it, you'll stop and you won't be able to do it. So I'll tell you a bit about some of my lucid dreams that I have had when I was practicing it for a brief time. The way to achieve these things, I mean, obviously you need motivation. You want more time in the day. You're tired of losing up to 8 hours every single day of your life. And you go, you know what? I wish sleep wasn't so boring. Sometimes you remember your dreams and they're kind of wacky. What if you could control your dreams? What if you could gain that time back? That's huge motivation. Steps to achieving lucid dreaming. First of all, is dream recall. If you have a lucid dream and you don't remember it, you're not going to keep trying to lucid dream. You might be lucid dreaming and you don't even know it. So you keep a dream journal. You start writing it down. Now, I think lucid dreams are powerful enough that they're pretty hard to forget. So I don't do that. But keeping a dream journal, writing stuff down, waking up in the middle of the night and going, I need to go back to sleep. Oh, wait, no, I have to write down what I was just dreaming about, is a way to practice dream recall. Because if you wake up in the morning, you slowly forget what you dreamt about, if not right away. But within about a week or so of writing dreams down, people generally improve their ability to recall dreams dramatically, going from, oh, I'm not the kind of human being that dreams, to, oh, I guess I do have a couple of dreams now and then.
Interesting. Very interesting. And tempting.
It's step one. Step one to lucid dreaming is just practicing dream recall. Getting away from being, and I don't dream, to I do dream. What are my dreams? I remember my dreams. Writing them down in a journal, whether it's a word, a sentence, a paragraph, whatever you can, it improves over time. Second step, reality checks. You do this in your daily life, like a crazy, insane person. Every now and then you just look at your hands, count your fingers. Do you have 10 fingers? Okay. Maybe grab your nostrils and plug them shut. Can you breathe through your nose? If you try to breathe through your nose and you're pinching your nose shut, you cannot. But when you're in a dream and you do this reality check, because it's now a bodily habit, all of a sudden you can breathe. So you figure out little things throughout the day. Maybe when you take a sip of water, you plug your nose and you try to breathe through it. If you do these things enough that they become a habit for you 30 times a day, you're bound to do them while you're dreaming. And because that's a trigger in your dream, you'll notice something is off. I have 6 fingers now. Oh, I can breathe while I'm plugging my nose. I'm dreaming. Your mind wakes up and you're able to start to achieve a lucid dream. But the excitement is there. And if excitement's a factor and your heart starts beating too fast, you're going to wake up. So you have to be ready to accept that you're in a lucid dream, or you're going to ruin it really quick and wake up in bed and then just go back to sleep, and you have to start over from zero.
It's interesting that you say that. To tap into something like that too, again, like it takes the practice and it takes that type of that focus, and you're going over the steps when you're starting with a dream diary, which I think I want to start doing that. But at the same time, like, so I wanted to say you're memorizing what your dreams were, and that's helping you to be able to recollect on your own. So you get to a point where you no longer need that diary.
Honestly, from what I've heard from people doing these kinds of things, if you stop using your dream journal, a lot of people stop lucid dreaming because they start forgetting their dreams again.
Okay.
So it is something you kind of end up keeping as a constant. I don't do it. I don't practice lucid dreaming as a thing. It just occasionally, now and again, happens. Maybe I'm very, very lucky that it happens randomly. Maybe I'm lucky that I remember more of my dreams than most people. Mm-hmm. The third step to lucid dreaming, we talked about keeping a dream journal. We talked about doing reality checks. I believe one of the final steps to lucid dreaming is as you wake up throughout the night. You know, when you go to bed, you wake up, you roll over, you go back to sleep. It's almost unconscious. You almost forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be aware enough to go, oh, I just woke up. Okay, I want to have a lucid dream. Then when you're falling asleep, you're really trying to focus on doing a reality check. You're really trying to focus on what you were just dreaming about before. Maybe you were biking like up a hill and you go, you know what? I was just biking up a hill. I'm going to go back to that dream because I resume dreams all the time. I'll wake up and I'll go back to sleep and I'm in the dream again.
I do
I'm
too.
biking up the hill, but now I'm doing my reality checks. I'm biking up the hill. I'm like, how many fingers do I have? Plug my nose. Because if you don't naturally do that reality check in that dream, you're just waiting for another one to randomly occur. So you can force yourself to do it and trigger a lucid dream. Finally, the last step to it, all of this is about keeping your front part of your brain, your awake part, conscious. If you get good enough at lucid dreaming, it's better to do it in the morning, not at night, when you wake up and you go back to sleep for 20, 30 minutes, because your awake part of your brain is focused. It's ready to achieve a lucid dream. You just want to remain conscious. You can also do this just during the day. It's better if your brain is awake, not when you're tired, to just lay down, relax, 15, 20 minutes, spread out, focus on having a lucid dream after you've had all the practice. It's supposed to be consistently achievable to a point where you have one lucid dream a night. Go from having one a month to one a week to one a night. My last lucid dream that I achieved through practice was incredibly creepy. I creeped myself out, obviously because I have explored too many rabbit holes and I tried to do too much all at once. But I had a few nights where I was excited, realized I was dreaming, started to do something fun, and then just woke up.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was in my basement suite, realized I was lucid dreaming, and it was kind of like playing a virtual reality game. I was like, hey, I can just like create stuff. So I was creating things. I'm like, I'm going to create a human being. And as soon as I did that, and I was like, I'm creating a person and they're going to be able to talk to me. Whatever steps I went through, I turned around and there was like 50 like shadow entities just outside my windows and everything, just watching me. And I was like, I woke up. And I did not try it again. That stopped me.
You got the hairs up on my arms right now, man. Yikes.
Now, people who talk about lucid dreaming and doing all that kind of stuff, they don't have those experiences. It's just all fun and games. Spawn somebody in front of you like a video game. Make them blip into existence. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I was having an out-of-body experience because it's extremely close to lucid dreaming. But it scared me a little bit. So I did stop. I might have been having a nightmare that turned into a lucid dream. And I could have just gone and just, nope, those things aren't there, and they would have gone away. But that excitement is a major factor.
You have to wonder, too, that whenever you're creating empty vessels, what is attracted to that, right? And I think that that's something we've talked about with like Sasquatch and demonic possession, and that's another can of worms. But empty vessels are a probable magnet for something looking to kind of be dangerous or kind of find itself.
I do believe that anyone who really wants to achieve lucid dreaming can use it for very positive purposes. Some people use it to study, to learn, to continue doing things in their free time, but in kind of a more fun way. I mean, you can fly, you can go to Egypt, do whatever you want. I wish that I was comfortable enough to lucid dream again. It's a fun time. I could go back to Zellers. I could re-experience some of my childhood, you know?
It sucks because, I mean, you can go to Zellers. Zellers has opened up in the Bay. For those of you who don't know, Zellers was an amazing Canadian store. It was super cool with the little, like, when you walk in through the front doors, you remember the little carnival Ferris wheel you could sit in?
It was a red Walmart.
A red Walmart?
Instead of a blue Walmart, it was a red Walmart. That's how I describe Zellers.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant the Ferris wheel. I was like, Walmart didn't have Ferris wheels, did it?
No.
You're absolutely right. It was the red Walmart.
Yeah, it was the red Walmart, and it had a restaurant in the corner. Taylor, what do you think? Now that I've told you what my lucid dream experience is, are you going to try to lucid dream?
There have been situations where I've been dreaming about things and I'll wake up and I will be able to go back asleep and get right back. And it's something that I realize in retrospect is it's not necessarily something I have put much thought into, but I realize that I will actually tell myself, because it's a good dream, and I will tell myself as I'm going back to sleep that I want to keep like doing this, and I can remember, I mentally will put myself back into the situation, and the dream that I'm in continues, and it's a good dream. It could be like I'm winning the lottery, I have money, I'm doing whatever, and it's a good time. But there are other dreams that I have had, and the worst one was when I was running across I was jumping from rooftop to rooftop, and I'm sure I've told you this before.
Mm-hmm.
I was very, very young at the time, but something was chasing me. I don't know what it was, but I was jumping rooftop to rooftop. And finally, the last roof that I was jumping to, it was too far. And I remember falling down this building, and it was horrible, absolutely horrible as I was falling. And as soon as I hit the ground, I had rolled off my bed and hit the floor. And I had never been so terrified waking up and thinking like, oh my God, like I truly in my every fiber of my being felt like I've missed that building, and I hit the ground from like 20 stories up in the air. It was one of the horrible situation. So that's one of the most traumatic experiences that I've had through some of my dreams. Other times though, I usually just don't remember. I usually am just asleep. I'm a very, very deep sleeper, and my wife hates it. But it's nice because I can wake up, and maybe that's why I feel so much energy in the morning. It's like, I got a great sleep, super deep, and no dreams. But the odd
He's
time
a
I
morning
do,
person.
I'm a morning person. The odd time something does pop into my mind when I'm sleeping, it's zombies. That's another one that I don't like. I don't like those dreams, but usually they pop in, and they're very stressful to deal with. Very stressful dreams.
I think if you were to practice like lucid dreaming, you still have multiple dreams a night, and having that dream recall, if there's any truth to anyone being able to have like prophetic dreams or anything like that, your dream recall would help you discover that. And if something starts to happen and you go, "Ooh, hey, I dreamt that. That's wacky." That'd be interesting.
Well, I'm curious to see what I could remember using a dream diary. And I think I might do that. I'm sure I got like a little book around here, or maybe I might just go get one today at the dollar store. Just put it by my bed, because I mean, there are times when I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I instinctively will just grab my phone and look and just like kind of like lucidly check what time it is, and then put the phone down and go back to sleep. And if I can do that, then I think I could try and put myself in a mental state that, okay, when we go back to sleep, let's just kind of relax and kind of focus and, count how many fingers I have, try and hold my breath. You reminded me too, it's very similar to the film Inception, where Leonardo DiCaprio's character they have these tells, and his tell is a little spinning top, right? And if the top keeps on spinning, he knows he's in a dream scenario. But if it falls over, he knows he's back in the real world.
Mm-hmm. I feel like in my dreams, I'd be trying to spin a top, and it would always topple over and just go flying off into the unknown, and I wouldn't be able to get it.
Well, that would not be great. And if it flies in the unknown, then you'd never know if you were in the dream state. I had another thing too that I wanted to bring up, because you had mentioned remote viewing, and I know I have mentioned this before, but there was a Bigfoot conference I went to years and years and years ago in Vancouver Island, and the gentleman that was hosting it, he had this whole presentation, and he talked about how he went out into the back country of Vancouver Island, and he had performed remote viewing, and through this remote viewing he was able to follow different Sasquatch that were out there, and basically allowed him to get close and eventually like get his physical self close enough too, where he could see where the prints were and take photos with the prints and stuff like that. But the remote viewing allowed him to get closer to them without them moving further away from his physical self. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Remote viewing is definitely one of those subjects in like the CIA documents and stuff like that that absolutely fascinates me. Like slipping a picture into an envelope, not telling the test subject what's in the envelope, putting the envelope in a different room, telling them to remote view it, and more than is chance, they happen to figure out what the picture in the envelope is by remote viewing. That's fascinating to me. And again, that takes me back to, I definitely believe in lucid dreaming. I believe out-of-body experiences are a thing. Telepathy, maybe possible, but I don't necessarily think it's easy. Remote viewing, remote hypnosis, I don't know. Like there's so many factors at play here. I don't know if these experiments and studies are true necessarily. I would like to believe they are, but it is an absolutely fascinating topic. And with that, I really don't have much else to add.
Yeah, well, I think that we covered a heck of a lot of ground, and this has been a very, very eye-opening topic of discussion. I think that in closing for my thoughts, I think that there are certain things with our dreams that we should definitely be looking more into, and whether or not our dreams are actually visions, and there's a certain sense of precognitive warning that comes with our dreams, and it's up to us to really interpret and figure out what our dreams mean, because our brain is just an always active thing, and there's a lot that we don't know about our brains. And there's just like you're driving down the road and you got a radio. Your radio is going to pick up different frequencies, and that's like our brain. When you think about it, it's going to be picking up different things, and when you pick up those different things, you can listen to them or you can turn the radio off. And so interestingly enough, in the video that you had sent me, they talk about how maybe having our cell phones and having a lot of energy, kind of electricity going around our brains, it's acting as kind of like a barrier, and it's kind of numbing our brains. Exactly, interference. And maybe that is the con to having so much technology wrapped around us, because it's kind of interfering us.
We'll tell if it works or not if you choose to eat a hot dog this afternoon.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I'll report back about the hot dog.
All right, everybody. I'll let Taylor take us away here. I think we're about done.
We're about done. Thank you, Reuben. Your research and taking point on this episode was fantastic. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with some more fun discussions. But until then, you can find us on our website, CryptidClues.ca, our social media channels, X, YouTube, Facebook. And if you want to reach us directly, you can send us an email, cryptidclues@gmail.com. So until next time, everyone, take care and stay safe.
Bye-bye.